Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to this month's webinar, Back to School, Training Mentors for Effective Relationships Within Schools. This is part of the 2012 Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series that is brought to you by several different organizations. My name is Sarah Kremer, and I'm from Friends for Youth here in Northern California. You can see at the bottom all of the other organizations that are involved in our collaborative mentoring webinar series. And for this month, we're working with Marissa Strayer-Benton from Mobius Mentors. Hi, Marissa.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Marissa. And also April Reardon, who everyone knows from Mentoring Partnership in Minnesota. And April is our driver. She's helping to run the slides today. So maybe she can just unmute herself briefly to say hello.
Hi there.
Great, thanks, April. So as everyone knows, this is the third Thursday of every month. Everyone is on right now, it's the same time zone. Well, we're on different time zones, but our webinar is happening now, and every month this is free. Today I will be moderating the interview with our panelists, and Marissa will be monitoring questions. And as I said, April is taking care of our visuals. Some things good to know that we do this every month. Just so you know, everyone who has registered will receive instructions for how to access a PDF of the presentation slides and the webinar recording. We'll also send you the direct link to the mentoring forums where we list all of our resources, contact information, and other ways to continue the dialogue. This is a really important place to go after, and we hope that you'll continue to use it. We're also looking for your feedback, so at the end of today's webinar, please help us out by answering the 5 survey questions at the end of the webinar. It's really brief. That helps us know what to do for next time. Okay. To participate in today's webinar, many of you have been on webinars with us and with other people, so this shouldn't be new information. Everyone is muted for the best sound. If you have questions or comments, type them into the question box that appears in your control panel. So this is a way for us to also have kind of an interactive piece of what we're doing, and also for you to get to talk directly with some of our expert presenters. Before we get started, we want to know who's with us today on this webinar. So we're going to have a couple quick polls here. If you can first choose for this question, how would you describe your experience level in the mentoring field? Please select one of the following, whether you're a beginner or new to the field, if you consider yourself experienced, or if you consider yourself an expert. Please go ahead and make your choice. And as soon as we get enough people, we're almost there, we'll go ahead and close that poll. Great, and here's who we have. As with most of our webinars, the majority of you, 67%, consider yourselves experienced, 26% new to the field, and 7% expert. So great, thank you so much for that. Our next poll is to find out what your role is in a mentoring situation. So please let us know if you work in a mentoring program, if you provide training and technical assistance, if you're a researcher, if you're a funder, or something else. If you choose other, you can go ahead and let us know in the question box what that other is, just to give us an idea. The majority of our attendees I know do work in mentoring programs, but it's interesting to hear who else is with us. And I think we've got almost everyone. There we go. Thanks, April. Here we go. 93% of you work in a mentoring program. Perfect. So you're in the right spot. 4% provide training and technical assistance, and 3% of you clicked other. I'm not sure if anyone has typed in what this other is. Marissa, any possibilities there?
Yes, it looks like Amanda works for a tutoring company and has applied for a charter school, pardon me, where they'll be implementing a new mentoring program. We also have a grants manager. Mary signs on as a grants manager, and then a mentor.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then we have over 500 people registered, which I think is that's a record for us. And at this moment, looks like we have just about over 330, and it keeps going up every time I look at it, of you on this webinar. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And we hope that this is going to meet your expectations of what you're spending your time doing today. So let's talk about what we're doing today. Today is based, we're looking at school-based mentoring. We thought this would be a good time to check in and find out what's specific about school-based mentoring. How is it different than community-based? What are some unique benefits and challenges? And then we also wanted to add a little bit of a twist to talk more about how do you specifically train mentors for school-based programs. So we have quite a few panelists that we'll be introducing in just a minute, as well as Q&A throughout the presentation. So let's do one more quick poll to find out, do you represent a school or academic-based mentoring program? That will give us some sense of what kind of mentoring programs you represent and your interest levels here. Okay. Looks like we've got almost everyone. Great. And we have, excuse me, 84% of you say yes. So great. And 13% say no, 3% other. Some programs might also have a combination. And then also we have one more poll. When do mentors and mentees meet in your school-based mentoring program? During the school day, maybe pulled out from class, at lunch or recess, which is a kind of a planned break, or after school. So if you can go ahead and make your choice. We know that there are a lot of different models of what school-based mentoring means, so this will give us some sense and also educate everyone if there are some of you who don't know other ways of doing things. This is a great way to find out. Looks like we've got almost everyone. I know it's a little poll heavy at the beginning. Bear with us. And here we go. We have, it looks like it's split almost down the third line. So about a third of you during the school day, a third lunch recess, and a third after school. Thank you very much. And then I believe we have one more poll. And that poll.
Hey, Sarah, this is April.
Yes.
Let's save that one and we'll do it a little bit later.
Okay, we're going to save that poll just to mix things up here. And if you wouldn't mind typing in, what is the most desired outcome of your school-based mentoring? So go ahead and type that into your question panel, and we'll have a few comments for you. And Marissa, anything showing up?
Oh, it sounds like we have or looks like we have a couple of people having a hard time hearing. But as far as answering the question, match longevity is there. On-time grade promotion, literacy intervention, retention of matches, academic and social. We're getting a flood here. Let's see, improvement in reading. So a lot of literacy focus, it sounds like. Let's see, safety is another hope for learning more about safety and keeping youth safe. Quality matches, lasting matches, so it sounds like retention is a common theme as well. Social and emotional, let's see, improved connectedness to school, which I know is part of the presentation, so that's great. I'm seeing a number of folks addressing that. Again, more longevity of matches, enduring relationships. Certainly a number of folks are mentioning academic improvement and supporting academics as well as focused on literacy comments.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And so we can see a wide diversity of programs. We have a few that are showing up on the slide of some different kinds of models that we know about. I know that there are many, many individual programs that are doing school-based mentoring or somehow involved with school. So there's a lot of different kinds of program designs and program outcome areas that we're looking at. So, just so you all know, we're not trying to say one suggestion here will fit all, but hopefully you'll find some good information here that you'll be able to use. So let's transition now to our first panelist. We're really pleased to have Michael Karcher, and you can read a little bit more about his bio. Many of you do know Dr. Karcher from his work in the youth mentoring field. He's been a panelist on our webinar series, both for the Mentoring Partnership in Minnesota and I think for Friends for Youth. But he has also appeared at several conferences and has done a lot of really great work in many areas, but also focusing in on school-based mentoring. So welcome, Michael, to our webinar today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So let me start with a couple questions, and then we'll just kind of see how things go. And again, if anyone in the listening audience, if you have a question, be sure to type it into your question panel. So let's talk about the basics. How is school-based mentoring different than community-based mentoring?
Well, can I just start off by giving a little background to sort of what I bring to answering that question?
Absolutely.
You know, they say those who can't do teach, and I'm a professor and a researcher, and I have found that being a school-based mentor, one of the most difficult things to do in my, shouldn't say my life, but I found it quite challenging. So I'm going to speak partly from my experience, but also partly from research that I've done, and I know the goal here is to focus on many programs. I'm going to actually focus in on school-based programs for traditional school-based mentoring, but I've seen school-based mentoring work. So I studied cross-age peer mentoring and developed for Big Brother Big Sister the training for their high school bigs, which is a great resource if you want to put that on the screen because anybody can use it. It was commissioned by Big Brother Big Sister and Kyoki Hansen, and anybody can go there, and it's a research-based training that takes about 45 minutes. And I would encourage people to send all their mentors to it, whether they're teen mentors or adults. They will probably find it useful. And there are other great programs. I love the Lunch Buddy program, Tim Cabell's program for having mentors work with kids during lunch. I think that's a real successful model. And I've also participated in and have a lot of interest in the linking up of workplace to school. I think Big Brother Big Sister has an approach that I've been a part of. I think it's beyond school walls or something to that effect. I really think the context of the school places more constraints on operating effective mentoring relationships or facilitating effective mentoring relationships than we think. Most of us tend to think schools are a great place for mentoring matches, and I think they are, especially the school-based context is what allows Tim's program, Cabell's program, the Lunch Buddy program to thrive. If it weren't for the context of the peers in the school, it wouldn't thrive. The same benefits wouldn't happen, I think, from a community-based Lunch Buddy. And my cross-age mentoring program couldn't happen if we didn't have high schoolers who could move over to the elementary school and be in the school context and be supervised. So the school affords a lot of opportunities. But one of the things I'm going to focus on today is some of the constraints and the problems that are posed by schools, and particularly as kids get older. So I think they're night and day, and I think one of the things Carla Herrera and I have been working on, we've been working on a book for several years on school-based mentoring. One of the things we've tried to highlight is that, you know, and I think Carla Herrera's work on the Big Brother Big Sister program, her research, you know, really revealed that school-based mentoring is not community-based mentoring light. It is its own beast, and it's very challenging. And anybody who thinks they can use standard training materials and training approaches and support approaches with mentors in schools is going to end up having no effect or negative effect on kids, in my opinion.
Can you say a little bit more about, and I'm really glad you mentioned that it's not community-based light, but the real mechanism for change within school-based mentoring. How does that work within a school-based program? Or I may be jumping ahead several questions. No. So
you're not, and I'm thinking whether I should point you to some of the slides or just jump ahead. I really think there's two processes that come into play to help or hurt mentoring relationships in schools, and one of them is the presence of peers. from elementary to high school, you've got to think about how peers are viewing the mentor and the mentoring relationship. Mm-hmm. And another school-based issue is that the school constrains what matches can do, right? So you don't have the complete leeway to go to a ball game or go to a museum or watch a movie. And it becomes more constrained over time. It's been my experience as a mentor and as a researcher that the range of opportunities that mentors have to engage with youth kind of get constricted. By high school, there's really not much space to go, shoot basketballs in the gym because the gyms are being used, and there's not the opportunity to walk off campus because there's stricter rules about that. There's no playground, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But the third piece, and Gil Noam and Tina Malty and I write about this in the handbook chapter that's coming out. The handbook that's coming out next year, the Handbook of Youth Mentoring, on a chapter on developmental issues. We've got to be aware that there's a very big difference in how teens view their friends viewing the match than how children view their friends viewing the match. So when we take all those pieces into play, the peers being present, the constraints on what you can do with your matches, and the fact that kids' capacity to think about what their peers might be thinking about the fact that they have a mentor are really important issues for programs to consider for their programming and for their training and for their support. Without those three considered, I don't think programs can be as strong as they should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some benefits unique to school-based mentoring and some challenges. I know you were saying that it's one of the hardest mentoring roles that you've done. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And we can also probably go to some of your slides if you're ready.
Okay. Let me do this. Let me ask if you would unhide and go to slide 8.
Okay.
That's 9. It's the one on the handbook. One back, I think. So next year, the second edition of the Handbook of Youth Mentoring is coming out. And I'm really excited about it. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get out. And Sarah, thank you for your awesome chapter.
Thanks.
On managing risk with youth. It's going to be a great, one of the things that's going to be great about it is there's so much of a focus on practice. And we sort of stretch the bounds by going beyond what even the research can say to really organize what the field is saying about things like, training and activities and developmental issues and risk. There's going to be a lot of focus on what programs can do. I was getting some feedback from Tim Cavell on my chapter on peer mentoring, and he sent me back an interesting comment, which was that he and I have a different take somewhat in how our work should be received by the field. I think all of our work needs to have applied, relevant, practical application. So as soon as we have ideas about how research relates to practice, we should share them. He's a bit more cautious, knowing that often findings get reversed or change over time. But I feel like, rather than sort of as a PhD, I feel like an MD sometimes, in the sense that we need to make sure we do no harm in our work, and we need to make sure as much as possible that we're preventing harm. So some of the slides I want to share with you today are really not about the positive benefits of school-based mentoring. They're about ways in which kids can be hurt through school-based mentoring. If you would jump to slide 10, I just want to start off by, and if people want to learn more about the SMILE study, they can access the article from my website, which is schoolbasedmentoring.com, and they can read about the study. But it's the next slide, number 10, I think it's 10, where it has the outcomes. We find positive effects. Mark Wheeler and Tom Keller and David Dubois did a great meta-analysis of 3 school-based mentoring studies, the Department of Ed, the SMILE study, which I'm talking about today, and then Herrera's study of the school-based mentoring program in Big Brother Big Sister. And I love that meta-analysis because it shows that the effects were pretty consistent. Kids who were involved in the school-based mentoring program were more likely to feel like there was a supportive adult in their life. They reported less absenteeism, better academic attitudes. We didn't see the academic increases in grades, and it's a disappointment that we haven't seen that, but I think it's sort of logical that you wouldn't see a direct immediate translation into grades. I think if we had long-term studies, we'd see that those benefits in attendance and those benefits in school attitude yield improved grades a year or two later, but we don't have the money to follow these studies for another year or two. So I think there are a lot of benefits, and one of the benefits is that you can reach kids that you can't reach in community-based programs, maybe because their parents won't bring them to the programs. I mean, there are kids who need mentors who can get them in schools and maybe nowhere else. So if we look at this slide from our study, from the SMILE study, which was conducted in the Communities and Schools program in San Antonio, Texas, with 500 kids across 2 years. I point to this study because, well, I did it, but also because it's the only study we have that reveals some of what we may have as an impact of school-based mentoring on high school kids. The Big Brother Big Sister study and the Department of Ed study didn't include enough high school kids to be able to speak to what might be going on there. Half of my sample was in high school, and what we found were that although the young boys in particular improved, and to some extent it looks like the high school girls improved, the high school boys got worse. They got worse on one scale in particular, statistically significantly worse on connectedness to teachers. That is, those kids who got a mentor compared to those who got other communities and school services like support groups, tutoring, school supplies, and other forms of material and social and emotional support that communities and schools can provide, their case managers provide. Those kids who also got a mentor and who were in high school, who were boys, got worse. And they were less connected to their teachers at the end of the year than kids who didn't get a mentor. And I think that is because one of the mechanisms of change that we all tend to believe is that there's a change in your sort of attachment to people at school, attachment to adults in school that gets, that can serve as a barrier to mentors starting up a relationship easily and smoothly. If a kid has bad attitudes towards teachers and principals, then the mentor is just another one of those people. But a positive experience with a mentor can shift how they feel about teachers and about school. So here we see that the kids who were in the program who were in high school, for some reason the boys got worse. They got worse on all the outcomes, but the biggest getting worse was on connectedness to teachers. By the way, if there was some interest in measuring connectedness to school, there's a free measure of connectedness available at adolescentconnectedness.com, and it's the measure that was used here and also in the Big Brother Big Sister study, adolescentconnectedness.com, and they can download that scale for free if they want to use that, measure connectedness to school and teachers and peers. So what I want to just talk about briefly is why might this be? And so if we could go from this slide to slide 15, let me share that one of the things that was unique about this study was that we were able to measure what the mentors did every meeting. We had an activity log that listed 15 things that they could do. And those are shown here on this slide number 15 that says weekly activity logs completed. And I'm just jumping straight to this. These were correlations, they're not causal, but these are correlations between outcomes and the percentage of time spent at the start of the year on these kinds of conversation topics or activities. And obviously, red means the more you did this at the beginning of the match, the less connected to school, to peers, to friends, to teachers kids were. The green means the more of this that happened at the beginning of the match, the first 3 months of the match, because that's when we measured this, the stronger the gains were in connectedness to school and teachers and peers. The bolded obviously means the more you did this, the much more likely the kids were to be more or less connected. And so if you look at all the red there on the goal-directed conversations, what we saw was that if you start off right off the bat in a school-based match focusing on academics, behavior, attendance, and future, these sort of problems, you will see those kids get worse from the program. And there's other possible explanations for why. But I'm going to stick with the possibility that engaging in these activities stigmatizes the kids, and it makes them feel like you're coming in to fix a problem, not coming in to get to know the kid. Whereas the other ones, all the relational conversations, and especially the gameplay, those were associated with bigger gains. And it was across grades, even the high school kids. The more with the high school boys you played indoor games or did sports or creative activities, the bigger the gains. Now,
so Michael, let me just jump in for a second. I find this research incredibly helpful and fascinating for thinking about how you're setting up your program and how you're training your mentors and how you want them to engage with each other. And I definitely used your research in some of my own training too. And I'm wondering, because I know we have some other people who want to start talking about kind of building upon your foundation here of talking about what's really going to work. So what are some highlights, if there's anything else you want to say about the research to kind of briefly go into that, and then kind of some lessons that we can take from this work. Even I would love to have a 6-hour webinar with you. You know that.
Yeah. Well,
and it would take us a long time to get through it, but let's try to get right to what's going to help out for trainers.
Okay. Yeah, so folks will receive these slides and they can look at the patterns. They can look to see that over time, as the kids got older, the more mentors were focusing on academics, behavior, and attendance, and the less they were spending time building relationship or having fun. So for trainers, what's really critical is to think, how can I help these mentors focus on establishing a relationship and having fun? And I'd say the biggest contradiction in my own thinking about this has been the fact that we find later in the relationship, it doesn't seem to be harmful to engage in problem-focused activities and to set goals. That's not a problem if you can collaborate with the kid on doing that. And in fact, with the high school kids, if they can shape the program, if they can tell the mentor, tell the program coordinator, here's what I need, here's what I want to do or get out of a mentoring relationship, then they can be quite focused on problems, issues, and goals. But it's when the mentor imposes it. So training mentors to be attuned to what the kids want to do, but aware of their own tendencies to, as the kids get older, for kids who are older, for kids who are boys, and for kids who are more at risk, we find mentors diving into problem fixing in ways that's very off-putting. So training mentors to be aware of that, put the brakes on that. You know, men need to be putting the brakes on that when mentoring older kids. But think about creative ways to ask kids what they want to work on. If there are things, and if those are problems, great. But if they take the lead, I think the biggest issue that I see is we're not incorporating fun into the school setting because all the adults look at the mentors and suggest, you know, help this kid with their grades. But we need to have fun, and we need to connect, and we need to be able to value and appreciate that the older the kid gets. And I guess I would just end this by saying, when you think about designing a program, or you think about training mentors, as kids get older, the question that you need to have mentors be thinking about is, when the kid looks at their peers and wonders what their peers are thinking about the presence of this mentor, is this mentor somebody who is cool, or somebody who looks like a fool for coming into the school to try to fix this kid? And we don't have the problem so much of this stigma with like Cabela's program in elementary school. I think we're doing great to mentor boys and girls in elementary school the way we're going about it. But we really need to think differently about how we work with teenagers and train mentors to come in as allies and work with rather than sort of against the kids.
Okay, great. And that almost completely rhymed there, your last comment about what are the mentees thinking about their mentors coming in. I love that. I have to write that down.
I'm working on a rap CD, you know, to help
a rap
the training.
CD? Okay.
Me and Cornell West are working on this.
Well, and as soon as it's available, we will definitely let everyone know how to download the school-based mentoring wrap, and it will contain all the information of all this research in it as well. But I did want to say thank you so much, Michael, for this background information. And I've seen a lot of questions popping up, specific questions for about the studies, and we're going to be sending you links to all of these pieces that Michael mentioned. You're also going to get a chance to view all the slides again. A lot of this work also appears in another journal called New Directions for Youth Development, the summer 2010 edition that's called Play, Talk, Learn, Promising Practices in Youth Mentoring.
Can you show that slide? It's 23.
Yeah, that was a really very helpful piece of research for me in looking at some of the some more of your research. So we'll be sending everyone all of this information so that you can definitely take a look at and learn a little bit more about this research. We're not going to spend the time today to kind of break down that research, but we're hoping for an overall view, and I think that we've got a really nice foundation now for April. Can we get to that slide really quick?
And then I'll quit talking.
There.
Promise.
There we go. That's Michael on the left, and that's Nicola, the other editor on the right, and that's not really the cover of New Directions for Youth Development, but I think it's a great way to show the editors there. Thanks, Michael. And so everyone will get all these resources, and at this point we're going to transition into our next panelist. Look at that. Our next panelist is Amy Cannata, who is Senior Program Advisor for Mentoring and National Service Initiatives with Education Northwest. And most people know that Education Northwest houses the National Mentoring Center. And Amy has joined us on several occasions and has been a part of a lot of youth mentoring efforts. And we're really excited to have her talk a little bit today. And I'll let you just jump in, Amy, and tell us what you'd like to share with us.
Hi everyone, and thanks for having me. As Sarah mentioned, we run the National Mentoring Center here at Education Northwest, and I was privileged enough a couple years back to work on the U.S. Department of Education mentoring program, and they funded, oh geez, it may have been around, definitely over 50, but maybe more than 100 school-based mentoring programs, some of which were in schools, some of which were connected to schools but had a community-based component. So I learned a lot from working with those programs, and maybe some of you on the call had one of those grants at some point. And so hopefully I can kind of draw on some of that as we talk. One of the things we really focused on was how we can help programs understand the integration of school-based mentoring, what that means for academic success. Michael talked a lot about relationship building, and basically folks came in thinking, oh my goodness, I have to improve kids' grades. We're going to have to go straight to homework help or tutoring. And so we really worked with folks to show them how they can train their mentors to have that relationship focus that will eventually, as Michael talked about, help with their connections with people at school, with their peers, and with their parents. So let's talk a little bit about training.
Amy, if I can just jump in really quick, I apologize. I didn't realize we're actually introducing our next panelist first, and then we have some general questions for both of you, and we have some of your slides here to look at. Okay. So let me just jump in, and I'd like to say hello to Ray Smith. Ray is Volunteer Services Specialist with Youth Friends Kansas. Youth Friends is different from Friends for Youth, but they are a youth mentoring program as well. And so, Ray, if you want to say hello and say a little bit about your work, and then we'll get back to our format.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Youth Friends is an infrastructure. We are not a program. We are an infrastructure that school districts can adapt or can use, and we will help them either implement a school-based mentoring initiative or enhance a school-based initiative. And currently we are in about 35 school districts in Kansas. We also, when Michael was talking earlier, you know, what he says about what the research shows is so true about what your friends think, you know, of the mentor-mentee relationship. But it reminded me that we also need to be cognizant of what the teachers think, because when Youth Friends was first started 15 years ago, we thought it would be wonderful if the volunteer could just pull out the child for an hour and do fun things, and we know the benefits that could come from that. But with all of the testing and everything that has come about through our education system, that's not possible. And a lot of times you get teachers that say, well, you can have this child if you'll do math homework, or you can work with this child if you'll do that. So we also need to really educate the staff and the teachers to know that this relationship building is key in any time of a mentoring relationship.
Great. Okay, thank you. And sorry again, Amy, for interrupting you. So now we have a couple questions for both Amy and Ray to talk about it. And these are questions that we came up with as a group, our collaborative group, to really, we want to make sure that you as participants walk away having some more information on. And the first question is about integrating academics into the mentoring relationship. This comes up all the time, even with community-based programs. So we'd like each of you, maybe Amy, you can start to talk about how you've prepared mentors to integrate academics into the mentoring relationship, maybe activity ideas, what's important, why it's important, that kind of thing. And for those of you who are listening in, maybe you can type into your question panel, what do you think about the integration of academics into the mentoring relationship?
Sure, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I think that, as Michael mentioned, these are programs that oftentimes have a hope that students' grades will improve. But the way that we start talking about this always, and you guys are going to keep hearing us say this over and over again, is it's really the friendship that's the intervention. And I think we see that in the results from Michael's studies, that it's really those bonding moments, talking, hanging out, playing basketball, getting to know the young person, that really builds the foundation for what's going to happen next in the relationship. So as he mentioned, it's once that bond is built, most students are willing to work on areas that they need help with. So we always start out with that piece in training. And I think it's also important to say, and Ray may touch on this too, that you're still going to train your mentors on pretty much all the basics that you would train for any program. So communication skills, the population you work with, do's and don'ts, trust, all of those sort of basic training. And then you're going to add to that the piece around how that all integrates with your school setting or your academic setting. So some of the things that we talk about are fun games that students can do with their mentor that maybe they don't even know that they're helping with math skills, or perhaps they're working on Scrabble and they're working on some spelling skills. So really focusing, like Michael said, indoor games that are fun, but that also have some sort of academic sort of component that's going to help strengthen what they're doing in school. So that's a couple ideas. I have more ideas, but I don't know if Ray wants to jump in here.
You know, I think one of the things that we always talk about with our mentors is that you have to be flexible. You know, I can have in my mind that I'm going to go to the elementary school and we're going to work on this activity today and it's going to be so much fun. And then you get to the school and the child has been in trouble all morning or has had a terrible day. And so you just kind of have to be flexible, because sometimes the best laid plans are not, you know, going to happen that day. And we also talk a lot with our mentors about responsibility and reliability and confidentiality, all those things that you do in any program. But we also stress to them that they are not, you know, the expert. That the school, since it is a school setting, the school has a lot of experts. And so we do a lot in training to give them scenarios of when they might want to go to the expert for advice or for help if they're having difficulties finding an activity or something to do. Another thing that's always very important is to give the child the choice. Give them a couple of choices. Do you want to do this or that today? Because they don't like to be told that this is what they have to do, and that's what they deal with all day long in the structured school setting.
Okay, great. Thank you both for that. Our next kind of concept we wanted to hear from you about is that idea of mechanism of change. Michael talked in the beginning about this, about how it can really be different for school-based mentoring programs versus community-based mentoring programs, depending on the model. What are some of your ideas for how to address this in training? How does change happen? And what do mentors need to know via training?
I'll go ahead and start with this. I think one of the things that most mentors want to see immediate change. They want to see the teacher telling them the very next week that the child has really, really improved. And so one of the things that we do is promote or tell them that change is going to be slow. It may be very, very slow happening. And the things that they're going to see may not be that the child is going to go from a D to an A immediately on some homework assignments, but it might be things like their attendance improves. You know, the child might seem happier. The child might raise their hand and answer a question in the classroom for the very first time. So, you know, it's little tiny changes that we typically see, and it takes a long time sometimes to see those changes.
Okay, Amy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I think that's right on, and it is really just showing them that change is going to be slow, and I think we do that in all mentoring programs. And sometimes, I know we talked about this earlier in the week with Ray, sometimes it's just getting the right mentor in the door as well. So if you see someone in your training or screening that is really focused on fixing problems, they may need a little extra help to see that it's actually sort of that relationship, as I said, that is the intervention. So this doesn't mean, go ahead, Sarah.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, it doesn't mean that the mentors will never help with academics, and I think we saw that on, you know, Michael mentioned that some of them did that later on. So there is a little bit, there could be a little bit of a tutoring focus. However, it's how you approach it and at what point in the relationship. So oftentimes in training you can sort of talk about the differences between a mentor and a tutor. You know, mentors are usually a little longer term. Tutors may have something specific that they're working on, like math or reading. And so just kind of showing them those differences. And even a tutor that comes in and a young person that's having a hard day, they would also want to talk about that instead of jumping into homework help. So, you know, there's some differences, but I think it's just important to show them that sometimes you may tutor, but most of all you're going to be focusing on this friendship. And then really working with the school and the teacher to kind of provide ideas and strategies for that particular young person. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about how to connect with other adults in their lives a little bit later. But again, just saying it is a dual role, but it's the friendship first, and just having that discussion. And like Ray said, showing them how it happens. It's these positive relationships they build with their friends. They start coming to school more. You know, if their mentor shows up on Wednesday, they're probably more likely to come on Wednesday because their mentor's going to be there. And they just feel better about their life in school because they've really built this friendship that's helping them increase their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm seeing some of the comments coming in that it's very similar to community-based mentoring, you know, that you are still training mentors. It's what you see on the slide right now. The roles are very similar. What a mentor is, what a mentor is not, same kind of thing. And I know within community-based programs, we still have mentors who want to focus on academics as well, even though it's not a school-based mentoring program. So same kind of ideas apply, it sounds like. Okay, so and let me just stop for a second and see, do we have any questions, Marissa, anything that people are interested in knowing about for kind of anything we've covered so far? Should we keep going? And as a reminder,
you summarized most recent comments. I do know that there are a couple of folks on who are associated with school-based or community-based programs, but wondering about mentors as advocates in schools. So there might be some connection there, and I hope that that's helpful for folks who, if you're still on the webinar, from a community-based program, but thinking about how mentors are active in the schools. So I know we're talking about academics and how that's folded in. So hopefully that's helpful for folks.
Great, great, thank you. And as a reminder, that you will get links to the recording of this webinar as well as the slides, and you'll get all of the resources we've been talking about. And so coming back to what we were just discussing, does any panelist, Michael or Ray or Amy, are you interested in maybe discussing what Marissa just brought up? If it's a community-based program that's looking for mentors to be more advocates, kind of take on an advocacy role within a school environment, how does that play with what we're talking about?
Well, maybe I'll add that advocacy has become an important issue in the field of mentoring since the recent meta-analysis identified its importance as one of the best practices. And I just started a study last year on advocacy and mentoring, and was sort of surprised to think about the importance of this. And now, as a mentor myself, I realized how limiting it can be to just think about the mentor role being me and the youth, and that's going to be the single catalyst for change. When I've been able to talk to the school counselor and work with the parent and work with the teachers, and even try to, for example, with my little, try to help him get into the high school if he wants to get in because he can't seem to be effective at making those communications, it makes a big difference. So I think advocacy is a hugely important tool for mentors, and they need training in. And what are the boundaries of it? What are effective ways of doing it? What are the resources that can be used to help them serve as advocates for their youth? I think it's a really good idea, and it's something that we're kind of new to in the field.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to a couple of our other key concepts that they were talking about in terms of training. And the third concept, you can go back to that slide. Some program models are more structured or more prescriptive than others. So how can mentors allow their mentees to have some authorship over their relationship in spite of these limitations? So some of those concepts that Michael mentioned earlier about giving the young person a real voice in the development of the relationship, how can this really work within a school-based mentoring program model? And either one of any of you, if anyone wants to jump in with that.
Could I reframe it and suggest that maybe the point shouldn't be here to think only about what the mentor needs to do to collaborate, but I think it's just as important for program staff to work with youth. Regina Davis, one of the summer institutes, I think you were there, Sarah, Regina Davis from Norfolk, Virginia, sort of opened my eyes when she said, yeah, she didn't say yeah down me, but she said, yeah, we know that we couldn't just sort of throw mentors at high school kids, but when we invited the kids in and asked them how they could use an adult from the community to help them reach their goals, then the program flourished. So there, the burden of establishing a collaborative relationship from the beginning begins with the relationship between program staff and youth. And the mentors are brought into a collaborative relationship, not made to be the ones who have to create it.
Yep. Yeah, that was a really great example. Go ahead.
Number of questions connected to exactly what Michael's responding to, and that is people are asking about how to get support from teachers on the relationship side of the match versus strictly the academic support side of the match. Any thoughts on that connected to what we've been discussing?
One of the things that I think is, unfortunately, it's just going to take time. You're going to have to build, if you're a new program, you're going to have to build a relationship with the school staff and prove to them that you're going to do what you say you're going to do and follow through with it. They want an organized program. Both the staff and volunteers want that. And, sometimes it feels like you're beating your head against the wall to try to get those things to happen, and you say, why don't they get this? Why don't they understand it? But it's our role to make them realize that, it will come, and it will come slowly. And sometimes you have to start slowly. You have to start with 5 good matches at one school instead of 50 poor matches at a school. So you just need to move slowly, and some teachers, unfortunately, aren't going to support you no matter what you do. So you just kind of go to another teacher that you know will support a child in their class, a mentor going into their classroom.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ray.
You know, can I throw out another program-based way? Amy has helped me for the last couple of years polish up the models, the materials for my peer mentoring training program. One of the activities we have in the camp program is a month-long after-school activity where a mentor and a youth plan a teacher interview, and they go interview the teacher to find out about the teacher as a person. And it helps the kids see the teacher as a real person. It helps the teacher form a connection with the youth, and then that kid comes back and presents that to the larger group. And it's done in a sort of structured, sequential way, and they reflect on it, talk about it. But I think one way to change the nature of these dialogues is to programmatically send them in to create a different kind of relationship. Rather than try to tell teachers it's important that we forge a relationship, help the teacher forge a relationship through some sort of activity that the mentor and the youth do with a teacher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. I think that's a good lead into our fourth key concept that we're hoping to get a chance to talk about, the importance of developing other relationships with other adults, and sounds like teachers and other people within the school setting is one. So who are the other adults that mentors should know and develop relationships with? Why is this important? And what are the boundary issues associated with this? So Amy or Ray, if you wouldn't mind tackling that, or Michael too, if you have any more thoughts.
This is Amy. I'd be happy to start on this. First of all, I mean, this is a young person has all these different people in their lives, and mentors who have the opportunity to get to know all these other folks that are working with them, it can really help you understand where they're at, both personally and in the academic setting. One person in the school that Susan Weinberger, otherwise known as Dr. Mentor, who's done a lot of work in school-based mentoring, always stresses is that you know the school secretary. And this is both for mentoring program staff and for mentors, because the school secretary usually knows what's going on with everybody, who's been in school, who's been absent, which parents are engaged, which ones aren't. So having that connection, likely mentors may sign in the office, and if they do, just kind of, making a connection with that school secretary, because they often know what's going on more than anyone else in the building. So I think Dr. Mentor has that's really good advice, I think, for us. Also, like Michael was saying, talking with the teacher, building that relationship with the teacher so that you kind of know what that student's working on during the day, or what they maybe have been struggling with, issues that have come up for them over the week. And then just having sort of that connection. So if you know they're working on a specific type of activity in math class, for example, perhaps that day you guys do a math-focused game. So just having those connections, again, with the school day. And then with parents, if there's opportunities for you as the mentor to connect with parents, if there's a picnic or something that the program's doing so that everyone's invited, we strongly encourage mentors to get to know the parents. And depending on the school and the rules, you may or may not have direct contact with them, for example, phone calls and things like that. But just meeting them so that they know who their student is working with is really important for them to help ease their mind and just to kind of know who this other adult is in their young person's life. Of course, we always teach mentors about boundaries with parents. And there's a lot of information. Really, everything I've been talking about is in our book called Making the Grade. And I know that we're going to share those links. It's a no-cost download that was developed with your tax dollars. And there's a whole section in there around working with parents and how to interact with other adults in a young person's life. So just trying to get that holistic view of all the people that are trying to help this person and just sort of knowing where they're coming from and what they're focusing on.
Sarah, could I just, I want to follow up with what Amy said, and it was based on what Susan Weinberger had reported. Renee Spencer and I have a paper that's nearly done, but it has one of the most interesting findings from our study, which is that, if you look at the slide I showed earlier, it showed no effects for elementary and middle school girls. That's kind of not entirely true. We found that if you look to see which schools, because there were 20 schools, in what schools did the case managers establish a relationship with the front office staff? The case managers, not the mentors, but the case managers. If they had a good relationship with the front office staff, Then you found impacts for those girls, elementary, middle school, and high school. It was in the schools where the case managers had not set up a good working relationship with the front office staff. But I think the female mentors felt disconnected from the school, and they had no impact. And I was fascinated by that.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think we're all going to have to sit and think about that for a minute. I wonder what makes that difference. Just the fact that it's another relationship?
Well, I think me as a mentor, I know from interviewing mentors, when you walk into a school and you say, I'm here to meet with my mentee, and they say, who are you? And you say, I'm a mentor for this program. What program? Oh, them. Well, they're down the hall. You'll find them down the hall somewhere, and you don't find them. That's very different than, oh, yeah, we love Susan who runs that program. She's great. Listen, let me help you, because she's probably out doing something right now. Let me help you find the kid, and I'll get you a pass for their room. Very different experience. And I think women may be more attuned to that than the men, because for some reason we didn't find the effect for male matches. But for girls, it made all the difference in the world, or at least all the difference in our study.
Interesting. Okay, great. So let me move on to our fifth key concept. So we're getting close to our end of our time here, and we do have about another 20 minutes. But number 5 is what to do or not to do when a student is struggling academically. You know, how can you stay positive? I mean, I think this applies to community-based programs as well, but within a school-based mentoring program or design, if it's really focused on academics, how do mentors and how do you train mentors to really stay positive and strength-based if it seems like nothing is going well? So either one of any of you want to jump in and talk about maybe some more specifically around some training, what we need to provide for mentors.
Well, I think this is Ray, and I believe I mentioned that earlier. You know, they're not the experts, and so we need to make sure that they keep the line of communication open with the teacher. You know, maybe it's okay to email the teacher to see how they did on the test last week. I know one of my greatest joys as a mentor was when a third grade teacher called me and said she got an A on a science test. You know, that made all of the time I'd been there well worth it. So I think if you just keep the line of communication open with the teacher and possibly the counselor, if you knew, we in our program really don't do case management, as I'm sure a lot of people communicate with their case managers in some programs, but we don't have that, so we encourage them during training that they have to talk with school staff to know, you know, how to do that.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Amy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. The communication piece is really, really important. Just staying positive with that youth, and you can see some ideas up here on the slide. Also, if they are having, you know, problems, not talking about them when they're in the room as if they're the problem. And I think we say this all the time. So just kind of training your mentors around appropriate interactions and how to deal with, not deal, but how to check in with staff when there's a problem so that it doesn't make the youth feel even worse. And then focusing, of course, on the things that they're doing really, really, really well. And we talk about celebrating successes here. I think as far as training, a lot of this is so relational. I've found that it can be really helpful to create role plays for your training so that mentors can actually use the words that they might use in the situation. And I think all of us in programs have situations that we can use as examples, that we can use as teachable moments for our mentors. So I really encourage you to kind of brainstorm some role plays if you don't have a list already that you can use for these different concepts, for developmental relationships, for when a young person is struggling. And then, as Ray said, who they should go to when they need help and when a mentor should get help when a student's struggling. So sort of all those pieces around what they're going to say and who they're going to go to and how they're going to get support to help their young person.
Okay, great. Thank you both for that. And then I think we wanted to, I can't believe we're going to get to our 6th key concept, and we still have some more time here for individual questions and more conversation. The 6th one we wanted you to, all of you, discuss how do you manage mentor expectations before they enter the school. I know within community-based mentoring programs, as I think I said before, we still have mentors who want to come in and really focus on academics. So I can imagine within a school-based mentoring program that may be even more difficult to monitor. So if you can both talk a little bit about ways specifically in training that you address mentor expectations. So if whoever wants to start, go ahead.
I'm trying to think of this is Ray, what we should talk about. I think one of the things that makes our initiative different than a lot of others is that we do not just focus on the at-risk child. And I think when Michael said earlier about how they, the stigma that can happen when a child has a mentor with them, in grade school, but even in elementary school. When we first started this program here in a small community, we were concerned that, ooh, that child has to have a youth friend because of this, or this reason. And, what we wanted was, ooh, that child has a youth friend, how can I get one? The totally difference in that. And so we try to we don't give the volunteer a lot of information so that they can have a preconceived idea of what that child is like. They have to learn about the child just like you and I would learn if we're going on a trip together and it's the first time we've met, by asking questions and developing that relationship. So I think a lot of times the mentors expect that the child's going to have lots and lots and lots of problems, and normally we find in a one-to-one relationship they see very few of those problems because the child benefits so much just from having that extra attention. Mm-hmm. I think another thing that they see is they think school is going to be so different, especially if you're dealing with a senior citizen population. They're going, oh, school's so different than when I went to school. Yes, it's very different, but yet it's very much the same in the relationship area of the school.
I think, thank you, Ray. I think that's a great segue into something that you can do with your mentors in training to help them understand and remember what it's like to be in a school environment. So if everyone could just participate for a minute in a little bit of a visualization exercise that I think we can all do in training. And I want you to close your eyes and think back to middle school. Or maybe it's elementary school, depending on your program, but I think middle school is a good one. And think back, you're in the hallway. What does it look like? What do you see? What sounds are you hearing? What are you wearing that particular day? What does it smell like? Who are your friends? What's important to you? What do you think of your teachers? Which ones do you love? Which ones do you not love so much? Okay, so now that we're all back to middle school, hopefully nobody needs therapy after this, and you would take a little more time with your mentors. What comes up for you? In the chat panel, write down maybe some images that came up for you when you thought about middle school. I remember I was in middle school in the 80s. I remember hair like these girls here on the bottom right of the photo, perms.
Oh, now it's all coming back, Amy. Thanks so much for that.
Okay, so, these sort of things, this sort of visualization will help mentors understand, as Ray mentioned, senior citizens that maybe haven't been in school for a while, or even college students that haven't been in middle school for a while. Thinking back to what it's like to enter a school building, the sound, how loud it can be, the different interactions the young people have with each other, what they think of their teachers. All those things can kind of help put mentors in the shoes of those young people to help them kind of remember, okay, I remember what it was like when I was 11 and in middle school and how hard it was for me to speak up in class, or, that I had a bunch of friends or I didn't have a bunch of friends. So just kind of getting them to think back to their experience in school helps them, I think, do a better job of understanding both the school environment and what the young person is experiencing every day. So that's just one example of something you can do in your training to help sort of bring them back to the time when of the grades that you're working with.
Okay, thank you for that great visualization, Amy. That brought me back to big hair and lots of crazy neon and lots of polka dots and things like that too. So let's, and any other last thoughts, Michael, anything you wanted to share in terms of our last concept?
No, and then maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's important for any mentor who's working with a high school student to realize that they're a dork and that all the kids know it and that they're fighting a battle. Maybe it's just me, but I just think if a mentor goes in, I tell my kid all the time, I know you're embarrassed to be seen with me with my middle school little, and own it and be,
yeah,
I'll stop right there.
all part of your rap CD, right?
I'm your mentor. I'm a dork. So yeah, I think that's a great concept to keep with. Okay, so we've gotten through our 6 concepts. We have a little bit of summary, but we do have some time if either Amy, Ray, or Michael, you have some other thoughts that kind of come up for you during our conversation here. Anything you wanted to add that we didn't really get a chance to talk about?
Sarah, just quickly, this is Marissa. We did have a few folks asking about mentee training on that side of things, so maybe folks can respond to that and thoughts around mentee training.
Yep, and specifically how it might be different for school-based programs.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, anyone want to tackle that?
This is April, and I'm jumping in just because I just had a meeting yesterday with some folks in the Minneapolis Public Schools here in Minnesota, and there's a program where they're matching all the 9th graders in one of the high schools, and it's a really small high school, but they were successful in doing that. But one of the things that they did work on in preparing the mentees, it was about sort of that stigma and this idea that we talked about earlier about feeling like, well, if I need a mentor, there must be something wrong with me. So one of the ways they got to address that was, everybody gets a mentor, all 9th graders, and it's because we think you have so much potential, and doing some preparation about what does it mean to have a mentor, what are the expectations for this, but then getting that input and feedback about what did they want from the mentors. And what they learned is they kind of did a slightly different focus, more on those the college and career focus with the mentors because of the impact of those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, I want to share just a slightly different approach to mentor training. I think Education Northwest has, I think, one of the best sort of manuals on training mentees, sort of pointing them to. But another way of training or orienting mentees, I think, is to allow mentees to have some choice in who they are mentored by. And I think that's an emerging practice that gives them some ownership. And once a kid has some ownership in who they've selected, they're more likely to be able to sell it to their friends and not feel like it's something that's been sort of dumped on them. So, using a meet and greet approach where groups of mentors and mentees interact, and then they just list who they like mentoring, they list who they like meeting, and then you use that information. I find it in our peer mentoring program, I find it so useful to be able to say, Tommy, this is the guy that you said you enjoyed meeting, and so you basically get to pick your mentor in this program. Is that cool? And if he says yeah, then you're off to the right start. If you still get some resistance, then that kid needs more support, more encouragement. But just them feeling like they're in more, that they have more say or more choice in it, I think is an orientation effort in itself.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who listened to last month's webinar, when we focused on the upcoming Summer Institute on Youth Mentoring that happened a few weeks ago, we had a really great overall discussion on youth-initiated mentoring models and how it works, and in ways that it may present some more challenges. But we definitely, talked about including your meet and greet model, Michael, where you let young people have that choice from the beginning, and why that seems to make a difference. I'm not sure how it can work in programs, where you've got 200, 400 students, But I've done some training with programs that are really focused on career-based mentoring, and while that seems to offer, a little more kind of narrows down the choices when you try to match young people with a mentor who has a career that they're interested in, it still is not always the best match either. So it sounds like we could launch into perhaps another hour-long conversation about all of this. And we're getting some amazing comments from the audience. Thank you very much for typing these in. We've been trying to get your comments up onto the question panel so you can kind of hear what other people are thinking about. But at this point, I think we're going to kind of come to the conclusion of what we've been talking about in terms of training school-based mentors. We have one slide kind of as a summary. And I believe, April, this is from Dana in Pittsburgh, who offered this idea that instead of mentors bearing the responsibility of changing the school or school system, or even the burden of dramatically changing academic achievement, they can have a huge impact by providing a calm island oasis for a student by showing up consistently and being a positive force in that young person's life. So I think that's a really great concept. Thank you, Dana, for sending that to us. So let's all remember to be that calm island oasis. And I'd like to really thank you very much to Michael Karcher, to Amy Cannata, and to Ray Smith for joining us today. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome, Sarah. And April, I sent you some of the articles I mentioned today if you want to make them available to folks.
Okay, great. And thank you, Amy. Thank you, Ray. We will also be sending out, we do have a couple more minutes, so if you have any other questions, but we will be sending you all of the resources that we've talked about. They'll be posted on, well, I shouldn't say we're sending them to you. We will be sending you to the mentoring forums where we will be posting all of our resources. That's also a chance to type in a question. If you have a question that didn't get answered, to go there, submit your question, and then we're going to be asking our panelists to, when they have time, to go in and take another look and see if there's something they can answer there. And as a reminder, you'll get all of this after, sometime after we finish the webinar today. Before you leave, you'll see a survey pop up, but you can really help us out by answering those 5 questions, and this will be a real help to us as we keep developing our webinars. Next month, we are focusing on closure. It's funny, we were kind of thinking, a lot of programs start at the beginning of the school year. I know many programs are ongoing, but many start at the beginning of the school year, which is why we wanted to discuss school-based mentoring now. And then we thought, well, let's start with closure, because sometimes closure is something that needs to come up right at the beginning so that everyone understands from the beginning what's going to happen at the end. So we're excited to have Renee Spencer, who Michael mentioned. Renee Spencer is at Boston University, and she's done a lot of really great work in general in the youth mentoring field, and a lot of really great work specifically on closure. So we're excited to have her. And then in October, kind of looking ahead, we're going to have Carla Herrera, who Michael also mentioned, will be talking to us about public-private ventures and their impact and their unfortunate closing. And then a couple more topics in November and December. So please send us any of your other comments. You can do that via the survey or on the Mentoring Forum site. Oh, and I see we do have one question. Amelia's wondering, Michael, when is the rap CD coming out? Do you have any dates for that yet?
As soon as I get Cornell West to reply to my email that he's willing to participate.
We
okay.
have over
and if anyone has any connections to Cornell West,
exactly,
please let us know.
We have over 300
What's
people.
That?
We have over 300 people still on here. Someone must have that connection.
Someone must have that connection to help out Michael. We are excited to see that CD, and even just a single. You know, I'm not even going to wait for the whole CD. Just the What was that? Mentor is not cool when he shows up at school thinking he's a fool. We're just going to wait for that one. Okay. Any other last thoughts? This has been a really great webinar. Thank you all very much for joining us. Last thoughts? Okay. For anyone else out there, if you want to learn more about the collaborative and how it works, you can stay on the line. We'll field some questions. Otherwise, we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on September 20th for our next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great day.